it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. Climate change is our greatest challenge. In the UK, climate change will bring hotter, drier summers and wetter winters, with more chance of flooding from surface water, rivers and sea. Already, 5.2 million homes and businesses in England are at risk. That number is likely to increase. But we don't know exactly when or how severely communities will be affected. So we need a plan, but also to keep our options open, modifying our towns and cities to make space for floodwater and take other steps to adapt to increasing risks.
Councils are really aware of the urgency and scale of the climate threat that we all face, and they are already working to tackle what is already baked in climate change, as well as obviously looking to continue to reduce emissions. So they're trying to approach the issue on both fronts of adaptation and mitigation. ADEPT is the body that represents senior officers from local authorities that are responsible for delivering the environment, the economy, planning and transport. We very much see our role as facilitating and bringing together local authorities to tackle climate change, and we look to do that through a sharing of knowledge, best practice, innovation, undertaking research and development. Essentially, we bring together those local authorities to network and to learn from each other and to deliver on what is the biggest challenge we all face.
Somerset is one place which has felt the impact of those challenges.
In 2014, this area suffered from devastating flooding. A large area of Somerset was underwater for 4 months. Then there was the need to think very differently about how we deal with flooding incidents. We need to be thinking about how our climate's going to change, and therefore how we need to work with different partners to agree actions, communities, think about the environment. With the Somerset Rivers Authority, there's additional funding, but there's still not enough funding to do everything that everybody wants done. Therefore, it's really important to have a framework to agree the priorities for that funding of what action should be taken in which order.
The National Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Strategy targets specific challenges facing England. It's a strategy for all risk management authorities and partners, which aims to keep our nation resilient to flooding and coastal change into the next century. It calls for a more adaptive approach to flooding and coastal change, recognising the uncertainty of climate impact. We cannot stop flooding, but in some places we are using adaptation pathways to manage the impacts to people and places.
The Adaptation Pathways approach enables us to make smart, low-risk investment decisions today and keeping longer-term options for the future so it could be more flexible in an uncertain climate. Through the £8 million Adaptation Pathways Programme, we're developing our knowledge of how adaptation pathways can be used by risk management authorities to better manage the risks associated with climate change. In fact, in 4 strategic locations across England, we're developing long-term adaptation pathway plans to better manage flood and coastal risk management for a range of different climate scenarios. Just the nature of taking an adaptation pathway approach encourages collaboration between a multitude of different partners from the very start.
Understanding the needs of people and places is crucial when considering an adaptation pathway approach. Consider a place which is at risk of flooding, where that risk will increase with climate change. The scale and timing of climate change is uncertain, so we need to plan for a range of future impacts. People and places have different ways they can manage this risk, whether it's storing floodwater upstream using nature-based solutions, having policies that limit development in flood risk areas, installing property flood resilience or by raising flood defences. The choice and timing of actions depends on the needs of the community. Available funding, stakeholder support, technical feasibility, environmental impact, but also the pace of climate change. In taking an adaptation pathway approach, we can take simple and smart, low-regrets actions first, keeping open longer-term options for the future, only enacting the adaptation action when needed. By monitoring certain indicators, such as sea level rise, frequency of river flooding and population growth, the changes can be tracked and actions put in place to keep our places resilient. This approach has been tested and refined as part of the Environment Agency's Thames Estuary 2100 plan.
Some of the challenges we face in the Thames Estuary are changing climate, where we could see sea levels rising by over a metre by the end of the century. Having an adaptation pathway allows us to plan for a range of climate futures. This means that we can change the timing of our interventions and the option that we choose to protect people against rising sea levels to the end of the century. We have a system of ageing defences which will need to be upgraded to meet the rising sea levels. The Thames Estuary Plan aims to protect over 1.42 million people and £321 billion worth of residential property and another £129 billion of infrastructure, including rail and roads. One of the challenges is ensuring that new development is resilient to climate change. So we work really closely with developers and local planning authorities to make sure that all new development takes into account the requirements of adapting to rising sea levels.
In South Yorkshire, we've experienced a number of floods that would have been considered as once in a generation. Back in 2019, 1,600 properties flooded, homes and businesses, schools were closed, transport impacted. So we've worked with Sheffield City Council to use pocket parks as part of the flood defences in Sheffield. They create some storage for floodwater during those incidents, but also fantastic amenity for local communities, great for biodiversity and public realm. When we're thinking about climate change and flood risk, we need to think about how we manage the land. In Lady Canning's plantation, for instance, we've deployed a range of measures there, a number of attenuation ponds, tree planting. Adaptation Pathways enables us to consider a range of future scenarios impacted by climate change and create a mechanism within which we can bring different partners together to consider those scenarios and plan accordingly.
We cannot continue to do what we have always done, which is build flood schemes. We cannot continue to build them higher. We have to look at alternative solutions. Here in Ironbridge, we deploy temporary barriers, but they do have their limitations. We cannot build a flood scheme here for communities like this, and there's other communities across the River Severn that also cannot have the benefit of flood schemes.
The River Severn Partnership is a source-to-sea approach, so looking at the whole river catchment. So it's looking at the whole multi-sector approach on the Severn. How do we move from risk management that's more short-term and reactive into a long-term strategic approach and looking at the value that we can get out of managing the river in the future?
Adaptation Pathways allows us to look at alternative solutions further upstream in the River Severn catchment, how we can slow the flow, how we can hold back water. So that is really important for us as the Environment Agency, as the lead organisation that deals with flood risk.
It's early days, but straight away it's brought climate change up the agenda.
We have a very large geography across the River Severn Partnership where we cover the River Severn, the River Wye, the River Avon in Warwickshire and the River Team catchments. There's a large number of organisations and partners that have to get involved.
The adaptation pathway approach can be applied to any plan or investment in any place that needs to manage flooding and coastal risks against the uncertainty of our climate. Humans and the planet have adapted to change for a millennia, but that change is coming faster than ever. The adaptation pathway approach can help us all better understand the journey ahead.